Hey guys, for today's video, I'll be going over Ainos' kits, artifacts, teams, and constellations to show you how to reach her full potential. Starting off with her kits. For her skill, Aino throws a moose catcher forward, dealing hydro damage and dragging her along behind it, which has similar exploration capabilities as Keqing's skill. And when the dragging stops, Aino deals AoE hydro damage to nearby opponents. When held, enters aiming mode, which can adjust the moose catcher's throwing direction. This skill is pretty useless and will really only serve to generate hydro particles, quickly apply hydro, and to explore. For her ultimate, Aino will periodically fire water balls at nearby opponents, dealing hydro damage. Now, this is where the majority of her kit's value comes from, since it applies a decent amount of hydro when the moon sign is of the ascendant gleam level, and a lot more hydro when the moon sign is of the ascendant gleam level, which can be seen in her talents, where it states that if the moon sign is of the ascendant gleam level, her elemental burst will fire water balls more frequently, and the water balls will deal AoE hydro damage over a larger area of effect. This effect will synergize really well with her dedicated supports, those being Flynn's and Nefer. For her other talents, it states that Ainos' elemental burst damage is increased by 50% of her elemental mastery, which is a mediocre buff since her ultimate doesn't do that much damage in the first place. Also, she only wants to be built with a ton of EM if she's being ran outside of Nod-Krai teams, but this is mostly because her hydro application has the potential to trigger blooms since she can be used in a bloom team, not because it increases her personal damage from her ultimate. For her other talents, it states that when Aino is in the party's moon sign will increase by 1 level, which is your standard Nod-Krai character passive that allows Nod-Krai characters to level up the moon sign level so that them and their other Nod-Krai teammates can get different buffs from their kits. Okay, so it seems like Aino will be a decent off-field hydro applicator and a really good hydro applicator with another Nod-Krai character. Her hydro application doesn't apply hydro through coordinated attacks, meaning that she isn't restricted to normal attack-based characters, and she'll also act as a budget Columbina since she can buff lunar-based reactions with her C6, and because she can ascend the moon sign to the ascendant gleam level for someone like Flynn's or Nefer. For her stats, well, she doesn't really have any concrete stat breakpoints. Once you've given her around 150% to 190% ER, her EM and crit stats don't really matter, so I'd recommend giving her enough ER until you feel comfortable using her in your Nod-Krai teams, then just use everything else you've got to pump her with a ton of EM and crit rates if you're using the Favonius Greatsword. For her artifacts, she's gonna want the new Silken Moon set for Nod-Krai teams because it gives her 20% energy recharge and it provides party members with 60 EM when the moon sign is of the Ascendant Gleam level and 120 EM when the moon sign is of the Ascendant Gleam level, all while providing a 10% damage boost to lunar-based reactions. For an alternative set, you can use the Noblesse Oblige set if you wish to provide your allies with attack percentage, or the Instructor set if you wish to provide your allies with EM while also giving Aino 80 EM. Now, if you want to use her outside of Nod-Krai teams, well then you'll want to focus on her EM, in which case the Gilded Dream set will be good because it'll provide her with 80 EM for the 2-piece bonus and 50 EM for every character on the team that isn't the same type as her, which would typically be every other character on your team, so you'll typically be getting 220 EM from the Gilded Dream sets. And the Flowers of Paradise Lost set will also be good for any Bloom teams since it provides 80 EM for the 2-piece bonus and a ton of Bloom damage bonuses. Any mixture of 2-piece bonuses that provide EM will also be good for her. For her main stats, she's gonna want EM on her sands, ER for her goblets, or EM if she's using the Favonius Greatsword, and EM for her circlets, or crit rates for her circlets if she's using the Favonius Greatsword. For her substats, prioritize getting ER, then EM, and then crit rates if you're using the Favonius Greatsword. For her weapons, she's gonna want any claymore that provides a ton of ER, with EM weapons being decent. Thus, the Master Key would be extremely powerful since it provides 61% ER and an additional 120 EM when the moon sign is of the Ascendant Ascendant Gleam level. The Favonius Greatsword is also going to be a really good option since it also has a 61% ER main stats and it provides 6 energy particles every 6 seconds when the user crits, meaning that you're gonna want to build crit rates and have a crit rate circlet if you're using this weapon. For another option, the Flameforged Insight would also be good since it provides a good amount of energy while also providing up to 280 EM for the user. For another good option, the Aquamarine would also be good since it provides a ton of EM and it provides 30% of 48% of her EM as attack for allies. For her teams, she's going to be the best in slot Hydra Applicator at C6 for Flints, a really good option for Nefer, a decent option for any other team that needs off-field Hydra application, and a really good option for any team that has Inefa and needs off-field Hydra application. With Flints, she's going to be a really good option because she can provide a lot more Hydra application with her ultimate because Flints will raise the moon sign to the Ascendant Gleam level. Other than that though, she'll only be a best in slot if she's at C6 and can provide a 35% lunar charge damage increase. For Nefer, even though she really needs Lauma, who already raises the moon sign level to the Ascendant Gleam level, and even though she can still make use of Hydra application triggered through coordinated attacks from normal attacks to the point where, at least in the V1 beta, Yelan is going to be Nefer's best in slot Hydra applicator, Aino is still going to be a really good option because she increases the moon sign level in case you don't have Lauma, and she can increase Lunar Bloom damage by 35% at C6. For other teams, she's going to be a very mediocre Hydra applicator unless you pair her up with another Nod-Krai character, preferably with Inefa, because unlike Lauma, Inefa doesn't have anti-synergy when paired up with another Nod-Krai character, and unlike Flints and Nefer, Inefa isn't a main DPS, so you can easily pair Inefa and Aino into any team that benefits off of Lunar Charge and really good off-field Hydra application like in a Hyperbloom or Overvape team. For her Constellations, her C1 states that after Aino uses her elemental skill or her elemental burst, all party members, including her, will have their elemental mastery increased by 80, which is nice since more EM is always welcomed, but it's nothing too substantial. For her C2, it's states that if Aino is off-field while her elemental burst is active, when your active party member hits a nearby opponent with an attack, her ultimate will fire an additional water ball at that opponent, dealing AoE hydro damage equal to 25% of Aino's attack and 100% of her elemental mastery that is considered as burst damage every 5 seconds. This constellation would actually be insane if it was similar to Yelan, Chinchuo, or Fishos' coordinated attacks, but because it only activates every 5 seconds, it's actually pretty mid. For her C4, it regenerates 10 energy when she hits an opponent with her skill every 10 seconds, which is pretty good since she wants energy for her ultimate. For her C6, it states that for the next 15 seconds, after using the elemental burst, damage from nearby active characters is Electrocharged, Bloom, Lunar Charged, and Lunar Bloom reactions is increased by 15% and will be further increased by 20% when the moon sign is of the Ascendant Gleam level, which is where another big portion of her value comes from, since the Lunar Charged and Lunar Bloom damage boosts are pretty undiluted. Now, after going over all of this information, should you summon for Ainos' Constellations? Well, similarly to a lot of recent 4-star units, the majority of Ainos' Constellations are all just mediocre buffs that don't contribute much to anything. But her C6 is really powerful for Flint's teams and Nefer teams, to the point where she's the best in slot Hydra applicator for Flint's teams and a really good option for Nefer teams. But considering that Aino will be replaced and only act as a budget Columbina after Columbina releases, I would only recommend going for C6 Aino if you aren't going for Columbina or if you want to maximize Flint's damage until Columbina drops. Other than that, I really wouldn't recommend summoning on a banner simply to try and get her other constellations. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have anything to say, please leave it down in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. Goodbye.